Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope you guys are doing amazing. Today's video is kind of different. So I want to talk about and actually show you what went behind the scenes when I was making the Ajeeb Inspector, my recent fashion collection. Okay, so before we dive deep into the video, I want to show you something very cool. Digital Branding Bootcamp by Ajeeb Studio. So this is something that is starting on the 17th September 2025. The idea is that we are going to think about creating a brand identity from start to finish, and this is a 6-week thing. So I personally have worked with a lot of amazing brands like Spotify, Red Bull, and even more. But the idea of this bootcamp is to basically take all of that knowledge and sit down with the community to work and create amazing brands. The whole idea of the weekly curriculum is like we have interactive sessions, group coaching sessions, assignments, and just to show you what the weekly curriculum looks like. First week is on brand discovery, and then the next is mood boarding, typography, then the actual logo design, and then creating a whole brand identity document, and then the last one is packaging and making it into a beautiful presentation. And yeah, these are some highlights from the previous bootcamp, some of the brands that we made in the class. So yeah, if you guys are interested, definitely click on the link in the description. It's a very chaotic process, especially when I'm making things for myself. Like, it starts off with, like, for me, just like creating a lot of assets, a lot of ideas, and just dumping everything into Illustrator. I use Illustrator because obviously all vector files more fun to do with. So as you can see over here, I'm just experimenting with some Arabic typography, some different fonts, and trying to figure out some compositions. And you can see I'm just moving back and forth on Pinterest. The idea is that I try to play around with all the ideas. There are things that I like a lot, there are things that I like just a bit. I just try to bring everything in. And the whole idea was that I focus on the narrative, which was there is this Ajeeb inspector, and the inspector is solving this mystery of ishq, which is love. And I knew that was like the main idea, but how do you translate that? Now, over here, the illustrations that you see are made by Mariam. So I had this initial idea, and I was like, Mariam, I need like a few illustrations of this Inspector Ajeeb. And she gave me these, and I don't know, it was like 2 a.m. when I was working on these, so I couldn't ask for the source file. So what I did was I actually took everything into Photoshop, used this method of like, threshold to extract like the black layers so I can vectorize it and use it. And it was just such beautiful illustrations that Mariam made that it was so much fun kind of working around these. And you can see I'm just trying to play with the shape builder tool to get the final exact illustration. And even when it comes to the colors, I'm just trying to see like what I like. I know nothing is final right now. And even thinking about what text element can go, what narrative am I kind of like bringing in? Because the idea of the collection kind of came to this point where I feel like personally, like love, or the idea of love that has been sold to us in this commercial landscape, is just not real or not true. Like, we see these things in commercials and on TV. Like, that's not how love is. Love is something a bit deeper and much more pure. And I did this collection back a couple of years ago. It was called Mohabbat, a series of unfortunate events, which had this guy in a hazmat suit who was trying to resolve his feelings, right? And I thought, you know what, I want to kind of dive deep into that concept. And when I was thinking about that part, I was like, you know what, I can't really do that with just such like an artistic, abstract, fine art piece. I need to think about translating that into a more fun, consumable concept. And that is where the Ajeeb Inspector came in. And obviously, that was an initial idea. It evolved into different things. And over here, you can see like I found this. I was trying to make some generic shirts also. I didn't want everything in the collection to be about that. So I was trying to think about these narratives about like Ajeeb is a movement or something. And you can see Mariam has given me such a good collection of illustrations that I am using those as like assets when I kind of take it through. Because the illustrations, we didn't really think about, oh, are they going to be screen printed, or what's going to be like the purpose of it. I was just like, just give me some concepts, Mariam. And she gave me these beautiful things. Now you can see I'm going back to Google just to look at like how these text in cartoons, how do they look like. And I'm just putting in some elements, some lines, some text that kind of cater to the main narrative that I had about the collection. And I'm getting somewhere, honestly. Like, this text that I made with the word ishq, it just looks beautiful. And you can see this is the YouTube video I was watching. digital spaghetti is really cool. I would recommend anyone who is into videos and art, that's the place to be. You can discover a lot of cool creatives too. But regardless, back to Illustrator. Now I made like three concepts so far, right? And this is like, obviously this is a time lapse, I am taking time, but I am just trying to speed through this, not really think about refining everything. The idea is to make sure I have an idea, I put it on paper, move on to the next one. And one of the visuals, and you can see in this visual, Mariam has this inspector holding a jalebi, right? And that is such a beautiful visual itself, because the jalebi came into this Ajeeb universe when we were doing Ajeeb in Lahore, and that identity was made in collaboration with Armagan. So he used the jalebi as like the main element, and when he was holding the jalebi over here, it made more sense. And with this one, I think we had like so many poses of the Ajeeb Inspector, so it was so convenient to think about. The first shirt is talking about this part of the story, the second shirt is talking about this part of the story, and it goes on eventually. And in this Google Doc, you can see that these were the color codes sent to me by my friend. Obviously these weren't the exact color codes, but these were just the shades that he was like, okay, these are the shades that we can find in the market right now as per the requirements that we had, which was a specific MOQ and a specific MOQ of like these specific shirts. So now that my friend sent me like these color codes, right, it was easier to like imagine these illustrations on top of those colors and see like how would that work. And I'm also looking into like how did these like Inspector Gadget illustrations and animations came out to be, like in terms of how they're exaggerating the character, how they're showing movement. And it was just something that didn't really help me a lot, to be honest, but it was nice to kind of be in that space, right? Where the only like, so I'm listening to jazz while I'm watching Inspector Gadget and making this collection. So I think it's more about the environment that I create for myself. It's more like a ritual that, okay, what am I listening while I'm making this? What am I talking about? Who am I talking to? What's the show that's playing on the other screen, and this is just on one screen because I was on my sofa making this. And randomly in the middle, I start thinking about, okay, what brands do I like, and what are they doing? And you've seen that I've made such a big like Pinterest board with like so many ideas. And then I'm kind of thinking about, okay, what if I go to a place like Cosmos, right? So Cosmos has like these copyright free images, and I found this amazing image. And what I did was I took it to Illustrator, I converted everything into a shape, actually a vector art, and I started experimenting with it, like how could I play around with it, because I was just switching back and forth to seeing like what is Babe doing. Babe is one of the brands that I saw the first time in Dubai, and I absolutely loved everything. And at that time I didn't have any money, so I didn't buy anything, but my friend did, and he still talks about it. It's been like 2 years of how amazing that oversized shirt is. And I was like, you know what, if I can't buy it, I will make my own, but better and Ajeeb. So over here I was like, oh, like how I heart NYC, I was like, what if there's a version of that in our universe? So I was like, I helmet Ajeeb, right? And after that I was like, you know what, let me experiment with just some 3D Urdu typography, and that's where I made this beautiful shape. And once I made this, I was like, listen, I really like this, but I want to kind of imagine this in a 2D style because it's going to be screen printed. So that's where I took it back to Photoshop, made it into this applied the threshold effect, made it into this object, and then I brought it back again to Illustrator, converted that to um, a vector file so I could use that easily. And this is what I got, and I absolutely loved it. And I felt like, okay, there's so much more I could do. And you can see that I started off with this GBU concept, and then I was like, okay, that could be the front, but what's the back of it? And that's where I was exploring this concept, embrace the Ajeeb. And that's where the 3D Ajeeb thing came in. And sometimes I'm just also looking into like just what, like how these other posters look like, how are they structuring the text, because if you think about it, like it's all about getting to that final point which you're satisfied with. Before that, everything is an experimentation. And right now I'm just experimenting more with this Brad typography and like this thing. And once I placed this ishq over here, I was like, okay, I am getting somewhere, and I'm very excited at this point, like, okay, this world is being built. Because later on what happens is that once I make like these initial concepts of the shirt, I was like, okay, I reached out to Zunaim, and I was like, Zunaim, I want you to help me structure everything in the best possible way, where I want you to figure out, help me out with some layouts that I couldn't crack and all of these things. Sometimes you just need fresh eyes. And I think the best part, I'm very blessed, alhamdulillah, to be running a studio where I have so many amazing collaborators and creatives around me, where I'm like, listen, I'm stuck here. Can you just jump in and help me out with this? And you can see at this point, I'm just like, organizing some things just so I could even share it with my team. I didn't want to share like this screenshot of Illustrator, because what do you do with that? And yeah, this is how everything kind of came to life, and I was really excited about it. And the main thing was, obviously the colors were not final, and you can see I'm taking a screenshot of WhatsApp of like the color that my friend said that he had available, who is actually my friend and also my vendor. And I'm trying to get like, to see like what other people are, how other people are using this color, how is that color being used with like different colors. That's very important. And the best way to kind of figure out with colors, I feel like, I just try to find the right examples. If you have the right example, you will find the right solution. And that's where kind of the research comes in. And I did a lot of research like before this, but this process was so chaotic. I'm going back and forth to Pinterest, to YouTube, to like different types of stores, and also talking to my friend slash vendor on WhatsApp to see like, oh, is this the right direction, is the shade right, and whatever. Because at the end of the day, you need like an exact Pantone color, but before that you can kind of experiment with this bit of like, just testing it out visually.